It's an exciting time in the world of the Pokemon trading card game. Temporal Forces is out now, Rotation has just happened, we're literally entering a new era of the Pokemon trading card game right now. And there are two new Deluxe Battle Decks that are out right now. The Zapdos EX deck and the Ninetales EX deck are out right now. Now, it's been a minute since we talked about these. I covered these back when they were first revealed a couple months ago. We even played with these decks on Pokemon TCG Live. I will put a link in the description here. You'll probably see thumbnails for those, and you can go and watch these decks in action. But today, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about these decks and let you know whether or not these are worth buying. I'm Jett from InThirdPerson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's discuss the Zapdos and Ninetales decks and if these are worth your hard-earned money. We're going to start with Ninetales EX. This one hits for 220 damage if you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, and if you can set up the Rapidash Pokemon along the bench as well. Your Ninetales is doing upwards of 90 extra damage on top, so you can hit for a baffling 330 damage for only 2 energy with that Mirrored Flames attack, assuming you get the Ninetales set up and 2 energy on it and 3 Rapidashes on the bench, and you have the exact number of cards in your hand as your opponent. So you need a lot of things to work in your favor, but when you do, it is absolutely insane. Here's a look at the deck list. We've got a 4-3 line, 4 Vulpix, 3 Ninetales EX. We have a Paldean Tauros, which actually does nothing basically in this deck. If you power it up with taking 2 turns, it probably gets knocked out on the following turn. Now you have no energy on your actual attackers, so I would not recommend powering up the Tauros. I would just put that in there basically to get knocked out at the beginning of the game while you get set up. There are some pretty good trainer cards in here as well, including Earthen Vessel, Energy Retrieval, Judge, Professor's Research. Ultra Balls are really nice, and then some cards that are a little more specific to the game plan of Ninetales EX, including Judge. I mean, Judge is a great card that gets played a lot, but in the Ninetales case specifically, this can help you get the same number of cards as your opponent. We also have Youngster and Zizu, which could potentially help you get the same number of cards as your opponent, and we also have 13 energy here. Now that you've seen the deck list, is this worth buying? The answer is no. Don't pick up this deck by any means. Do not pick up the Ninetales EX deck. The problem with this is that Ninetales is a wildly inconsistent attacker. You need to be able to get, in order to get the attack doing maximum damage, having the exact number of cards is incredibly difficult to do. And even though they give you a decent suite of trainer cards to help you get the equal number of cards, and actually this might become more consistent thanks to Temporal Forces. There's a Hand Clipper card which can force both players down to 5, and that might be something worth considering. I still don't think it's going to be enough to make Ninetales worth it. So where I do say no amount of upgrading can save this deck from being competitive, I'm going to put an asterisk on that and say maybe the Hand Clipper item could make it a little better. But still, 220, and maybe you're doing more with the Rapidashes. I'm not sure it's still enough, especially with how insane the format is right now and how many heavy hitters there are in the game. I just don't think it's worth the trouble. And if you're looking at this in terms of potentially splashing these cards in other decks, I just don't think there's enough good cards in here that you'll want to use it for spare parts somewhere else. Now let's talk about Zapdos EX. It has an interesting move that lets it hit the active and the bench at the same time. Neither of those shots hit particularly hard, but you can do some interesting things by hitting 2 targets at once. Miraidon is one of the most popular Pokemon in the Scarlet and Violet era. It's great for setting up your bench. It's not a bad attacker as well. And then Pawmot is a single prize attacker that can hit for over 200 damage, making it potentially valuable against other EX and V Pokemon. Here's a look at the Zapdos EX deck list. Now, we do get 2 copies of Zapdos and 1 copy of Miraidon. And the thing with Zapdos's attack is that if you want to hit the bench, the the Pokemon have to have damage on them already. So that's why we've got 3 copies of Hawlucha in this deck. We also have a 4-3-2 line of Pawmot, and Pawmot can build up energy on itself and then swing for over 200 damage. The trainer lineup is, it's got some hits and misses. A single copy of Boss's Orders is a kind of not great. I wish there were more. 4 copies of Bravery Charm is good. Earthen Vessel is a good card. I cannot believe this deck only comes with 3 Electric Generator. That's absolute madness. Any Lightning deck should just have 4, so I don't understand why they only have 3 here. We have Jacq, which I've seen in a couple of post-rotation lists. I don't know if that's fallen out of favor, but it helps you evolve or get 2 evolution Pokemon, helping you set up your Pawmots a little easier. Nest Ball's good. Professor's Research, a great card. Rika and Ryme are horrible, and I don't like that they're in this deck. I also don't like that Youngster is in this deck. As for the other ones, Super Rod, Switch, Ultra Ball, those cards are great. We also get 13 energy. There's a lot of reasons to not buy Zapdos EX. For one, Zapdos EX in this deck is the primary attacker, and it's just not built to be a primary attacker. It is best as a one-of in a Miraidon deck, where you've got Miraidon setting up the bench, and you've got other attackers and other ways of accelerating energy, and Zapdos is just not hitting particularly hard to the active or to the bench. It's very situational when you would want multi-shot lightning to hit, but if you're building your entire game plan around that attack, it's just not going to fare well most of the time. I think Pawmot is too slow in this deck, especially since there's no rare candy in the deck, so it's going to take multiple turns to even set it up, and even longer to get energy on there, and then you're going to discard it all after your attack, so it feels like a wildly inefficient use of your time and actions. And then the trainer cards are really wonky. The inclusions of stuff like Ryme and Rika and Youngster are not great, and it overall hurts the strategy of the deck, and the strategy is fundamentally flawed to begin with because Zapdos EX is just not the type of attacker that you build an entire deck around. And then last but not least, this is a redundant product. We have the Miraidon League Battle Deck, and I know that one costs a little more, but this one also has a Miraidon, and that one is way better than this one. So if you don't have a lightning deck, I would not bother with this at all. The only time I would recommend picking this up is if you actually already have the Miraidon League Battle Deck and you want to get Zapdos EX, an extra Miraidon, and a couple of Bravery Charms, and you're not willing to get the singles through a site like TCG Player or anything like that. You're fine to pay a premium to get this entire deck, and maybe you have some spare parts for another deck while putting the good cards into your Miraidon League Battle Deck. As a way of upgrading the Miraidon League Battle Deck and giving yourself a Sniper and some Bravery Charms to make all of your basic Pokemon more tanky, then maybe you will want the Zapdos EX deck. But if you're buying this as your only deck, or you want to just use it as a standalone product, I think this thing is not good. Unfortunately, I'm not particularly high on the Deluxe Battle Decks this go around. Fingers crossed that the drop later this year is going to have a better selection of decks, but there are some better ones you can go to the store and buy instead. If you're looking at that Zapdos one thinking that might be interesting, go buy the Miraidon League Battle Deck instead. You're getting multiple copies of Miraidon. You're getting the Regieleki line, which isn't necessarily my favorite way to play the deck, but in a post-rotation world, this might be a more viable way of playing Miraidon, and you're getting a lot better selection of trainer cards. You're getting 4 Electric Generator, and this is, at the very least, if you're considering the Zapdos one still, buy the Miraidon deck, play with that, and if you really want Zapdos on top of the Miraidon deck, then go grab the Zapdos deck. If you want something in the same price point and in the same deluxe battle line, I would say get the Meowscarada deck, because I think that this is probably the most solid of the bunch, and with a couple of upgrades you can make this pretty good, and its competitive ceiling at the moment, I know it hasn't really seen a lot of traction outside of Japan, but in Japan post rotation I have seen this Meowscarada, when fully upgraded, get a couple of top 16 spots. I still think it is very squarely a rogue deck when fully upgraded and on the fringes of competitive viability, but relative to the Quaquaval, the Zapdos and the Ninetales. The Meowscarada one is the best of the bunch, and it's actually the only one that I have personally bought myself. But I would say of any of the pre-made decks that are out right now, the one to get is the Gardevoir one. And this one's coming out in April, and this one's going to be a little more expensive than your Deluxe Battle decks, but I think that the build of this League Battle deck is fantastic. And Pokemon really did a great job with this one. There's very few upgrades you really need to make here, and it is a very, very strong competitive build of Gardevoir that only needs a couple minor tweaks and you're golden. There we go. That's kind of my thoughts on the Zapdos and Ninetales decks. If you want to see them in action, again, I will put the links in the description of this video. But for the time being, I got to get going. It's post-rotation time. Looking forward to trying out all the new decks and trying out the old decks that are now having to evolve with the times because a whole bunch of cards have just rotated out. So I'm going to go do that instead, and we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at In Third Person. You can find me on Twitch at In Third Person, where I hope to return to streaming this Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time with some post-rotation action. And check out the website inthirdperson.com for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.